Stardust Solar is a North American franchisor of residential and commercial solar and renewable energy installation services. The company has issued several news releases in the past week, most notably its Q2 financial results, which saw revenues grow 13% to 2.2 million, and its backlog increased by 2.5 million to total 3.2 million at the end of the quarter. CEO Mark Tadros is here to discuss the results, outlook, and provide a business update. I'm Martin Gagel with Market Radius Research. Please remember, this is neither a recommendation nor investment advice. We're here to learn about the company. Mark, how are you doing? How was your summer?
I'm doing great. Good morning, Martin, and thanks for having me. Summer was fantastic. Excited to get back into the grind of things.
You had some very strong top line numbers there in the quarter. How about you just give us, from your perspective, the highlights? What do you think are the most interesting or notable aspects that investors should be looking at?
Q2 was a great quarter for us, and there are a few specific notes that I want to highlight. Primarily top line revenues, IFRS revenues, 1.2 million. It's actually the largest quarter in the company history, and we have this continuous growth trend that's setting us on the path to continuously beat our quarter-over-quarter revenues. So the strong top line is the first thing I'd like to highlight. You also mentioned the addition of 2.5 million in system-wide sales added to our backlog, coming to a total of 3.2 million. That's another record for us. Q2 was a record month in system-wide sales. And I just want to clarify for all the investors that are listening, when we talk about our backlog or system-wide sales, we're specifically discussing contracts that have been signed across our entire franchise network. And that gives investors a really good snapshot into the future of our company and how much work there is to come. But it's important that people recognize that our backlog doesn't necessarily represent the exact revenues that end up on our financial statements. Now, they are closely correlated, but the backlog is a representation of contracts and projects to come in the company. So the 2.5 million that we added in Q2 will end up turning into, on a proportional basis, maybe 50, 60, or 70% of that will end up as revenues in Q3 to give investors a good outlook on where the company is going. Furthermore, go ahead.
So when you have a backlog, let's say you've got your 3.2 million of backlog right now. Typically, when you have a backlog, how does it take 3 months or 6 months for that backlog to get sort of churned through the revenue? Or I presume people don't sort of order something and it takes a year for it to sort of run through the backlog. What's the typical length of backlog need that it processes?
Yeah, no, thanks for that question. That's really important. I think 3 to 6 months is a really good outlook. Sometimes
Okay.
it's a little shorter than that. What it's dependent on is getting the permits for the projects. That's
Yeah.
usually the biggest delay. But once those are in place, we're able to knock out the projects in quick order. But I think a 3-month outlook to a maximum of 6 months is a very accurate outlook.
Okay. All right. And you were going to continue saying something.
Some really important notes here to look at in our financial statements. One is I encourage investors to go look at the balance sheet and look at the loans and convertible notes that are available on the company. I think the total there is only like 110 or 120,000 on the entire company, and that was done with purpose. We paid off something like $600,000 in loans and debt year to date in 2025. And that was done on purpose. We are preparing ourselves for an EBITDA positive company. We are looking at profitability. Now, when we listed just over a year ago, part of the conditions put on us by the exchange was we had to take a bunch of convertible debt to satisfy some of their requirements. That debt came with significant interest. In Q1 and in Q2, we were paying in the range of $60,000 a quarter in interest. So I found it was imperative that we pay off all that debt. Happy to report the company is extremely light in debt and liability at this time, and that's setting the table for Q3 and the future as we drive towards an EBITDA positive business in 2026.
All right. There are not a lot of micro caps that where the CEO says, "Hey, check out our balance sheet." So it's a refreshing perspective. Things have obviously improved there. Not to be grumpy about this, but you don't have the strongest balance sheet in the world, and you are still working using cash. You're not profitable at this point. Are you comfortable with where the balance sheet is and that you're self-sustaining at these levels?
Absolutely. So we are driving towards profitability, and that's kind of my message to investors for 2026. But talking specifically about the numbers, one important thing is cash, right? So we're a service-based business. So our cash is kind of like a tidal wave. It's coming in and it's going out. It's coming in and it's going out. And that cash position changes radically, especially during Q2 and Q3 when we're out in the field executing projects. A lot of times we'll need to deploy capital to finish a project, and then that'll turn into AR that we're able to collect and bring back into the bank account. However, I'd also like to highlight, if you look at the balance sheet, that the cash position is there, but our accounts receivable have grown by more than 100%, up to $800,000 almost. As
Yeah.
well, you look at our inventory has grown and our prepaid expenses. So some of that is inventory in transit. So when you actually look at our cash and cash equivalents of 1.279 million, and then you look at our liabilities, which reduced significantly, we are setting the table for profitability into the future. And again, the cash position is not a concern. Even at today's date, I can tell you that our cash position is significantly improved from the June 30th reporting.
Well, I would think in Q2 and Q3, I guess let's go switch to the seasonality of the business. I would presume, given this is Canada, Q quarters, the second and third quarters are the higher installation and revenues quarters of the business. So ahead of that, you have to buy inventory. You need capital for that. You install it, and then it takes a little while to get paid from your clients. So this is, I'm guessing, maybe the most strained portion of the snapshot of your balance sheet is at near the more strained side of it, and then it would improve through the rest of the calendar year.
That's correct. Yeah. So Q2, Q3 are definitely the months where we're up on the roof or out in the field doing installation work. Now, Q4 is specifically targeted to adding and signing new franchisees. So that's the period in the year where we're adding a whole bunch of new franchisees across North America. And Q1, which is typically our slowest quarter, is when we train that new crop of franchisees coming into the system. So they're ready to go for March. When the snow melts, they're ready to get in the field and start installing. So there is a lot of seasonality to our business. And you're correct. This is probably the most strained period for our company in terms of cash flow. But if you look again at inventory, prepaid expenses, and accounts receivable, you can see that there's a lot that's going to be coming in the next quarter.
All right. Um, how is business looking for the remainder of Q3 and Q4? Or I presume you're not giving specific guidance, but can you give a bit of a outlook on sort of general perspective on what investors should be expecting?
Sure, I can do that. And I do need to be careful with forward-looking statements, but it's very positive, is what I would tell you. Our system-wide sales, our backlog continues to grow. We continue to break records. August was another $1 million addition to our backlog. Actually, I can tell you the last 3 months, actually, out of the last 4 months, 3 of those months, we added over $1 million to our backlog and projects. So the amount of work we have coming is growing tremendously. We expect Q3 to be even better than Q2 in terms of top line and bottom line. And we continue that trend towards growth. In terms of year end, I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to post. Again, I don't want to give too much specifics, but I think from an overall standpoint, IFRS standpoint, we should be north of 4.5 million and looking at something like 33% year over year growth. So the company is definitely trending in the right direction, and the reinforcement of the backlog that just keeps growing gives a lot of comfort to operations because we have endless amount of projects to work on.
All right. In terms of growing the business, one of your news releases over the past week is you brought on another franchise, and they're more focused or have some focus on the commercial. Previously, you've been more residential, renewable power installation services. I believe, do I have that right? And is this like first of many more? It's obviously a good sign. Do you expect to be announcing more commercial type franchises and business?
Something for investors to recognize is we do both residential and commercial. But you're right, this was the first ever franchise we sold that's specifically targeting commercial projects in Temiskaming, Ontario. Now, that's exciting for us because it diversifies our business model a bit. And by the way, another thing investors to know is we are working on a lot of different ways to expand laterally, vertically, and continuously innovate inside of our business model. But this opportunity with Mason Green, great entrepreneur that's joined Stardust Solar, has a lot of contacts in the commercial space, and specifically in Temiskaming, he has a lot of opportunity there. Now, the really important part here to recognize, and I don't know if you saw this in the press release, but we were able to offer that Ultramar location less than 5 years ROI on their solar installation. So we're going to be doing a 6-figure project for them, installing the solar on their commercial operations, and they'll recoup the entire investment in something like 4.7 years on a system that's guaranteed for 25 years. Now that is a home run economics for the solar industry.
You have exposure to the U.S. market as well. We talked about that the last time. How is your focus really on the Canadian market now with the ongoing incentives here, and the U.S. is a little bit, I don't know, in the back burner, but a little less focused?
Yeah, appreciate the question. I get this one a lot. You know what I would tell you is this. It's not necessarily on the back burner. There's still a lot of opportunity in the US. And, you know, the political spectrum swings left and then it swings right and it goes back and forth. And there's continuously changes, you know, every 4 years in terms of priorities with the current government in power. Now, that being said, we are definitely a Canadian backbone company, and we have probably 80% of our revenues coming from Canada now, and there's a ton of incentives in Canada. So our Canadian backbone is only strengthening itself. However, I also see opportunity in the US right now. You know, with the ITC being rescinded at the end of this year, at the end of this calendar year, December 31st, 2025, it's created a ton of opportunity for M&A for Stardust Solar. We've been approached by a ton of US solar contractors, even another large franchisor that's looking to merge with us. And we're able to acquire these assets at a discount because of the political sphere in the US right now. So I see opportunity. I don't have any concerns. You know, eventually the demand for solar and that technology is going to be apparent, whether it's in today's news or in tomorrow's news or a year out. Eventually the demand for energy is going to create the demand for solar. It is the correct solution for the growing demand on the grid. And when that opportunity comes, we'll be in a perfect position to strike, and we'll have fortified our US assets, and we'll really be able to run with the stock at that time.
Anything else you want to highlight before we wrap it up?
I think we did a pretty good job of, you know, reviewing Q2s and talking about the future. You know, I appreciate the opportunity, Martin, to talk to your listeners. And what I would say is, you know, continue to watch our company and our financial statements. Although there might be a little bit of, you know, negative sentiment in the US on the solar industry, we're a fundamentals company. I think you'll see our financial statements continue to improve, and really excited for 2026. That should be an EBITDA positive year for the company. And I think that'll be very well received if we can achieve that.
Excellent. Mark, thank you very much. Talk to you again soon.
Great. Thanks, Martin.